Singh, and I'm with ALM, and I'm here today to share highlights from my recent research on strategic risk management consulting. Just some administration. All lines are muted, but if you'd like to ask a question, please use the panel on the screen on the on your top right of your screen. Enter the questions, and I'll take those at the end of the webinar. And then also, this webinar is being recorded. We will actually distribute a copy of this webinar to you and to anyone who registered, probably within the next 24 hours. Okay, so with that, let's get going. As I mentioned, I'm Naima Essing, and I'm here to highlight my research on strategic risk management consulting. There's my picture. I thought we'd start briefly on ALM's consulting taxonomy. We've done webinars on this, so we're not going to spend much time here. But as this graphic shows, strategic risk consulting in our taxonomy is part of enterprise strategy consulting services. And these services target the needs of the corporate office, specifically the C-suite and the board. Strategic risk broadly encompasses, as the name implies, strategic risk, but it also includes enterprise risk management, crisis preparation and response, and reputation and brand management. It does not, however, explicitly cover cybersecurity, which is a separate consulting topic covered in depth by my colleague, Laura Becker. So, as a definition, sort of the objective of strategic risk management consulting are twofold. The first objective really relates to frameworks. It's the objective to help clients develop a consistent approach or framework to assess, prioritize, and manage critical risks from across the organization as an integrated portfolio. So it's really around the structure and the infrastructure. And the second objective is more strategic, and it really seeks to help clients integrate the formal consideration of risk in the strategy setting environment to enable leadership to basically make balanced trade-offs between risk and opportunity. So at ALM, we update our Vanguard reports annually, and thus we can capture shifts in shifts and trends in client needs and consulting trends. So last year when I did this report on strategic risk consulting, the outcome of my research through interviews with clients and consulting providers really revealed a focus on that first objective for the need to establish a robust and consistent framework and infrastructure to assess risks across the organization. This year, however, there was a really marked shift, and my research revealed a clear focus on that second objective, that is for helping clients upgrade their risk function to really meet the strategic needs of frontline leadership, including boards, in better understanding the risk landscape in making decisions and prioritizing resources and investments. This change is really due to a confluence of events, and I'll mention two. The first is due to the rising frequency and impact of disruption on the ability of companies to execute on their business strategy, with changing government policies, in regulation, and in technology. With government policies, we see Brexit and ongoing negotiations around trade policies. In regulation, there's GDPR and other data privacy concerns. And in technology, we see the advent of a lot of new competition coming in from companies with new digitally enabled business models. So not only do we have a rising frequency and impact of disruption, but at the same time, even with more companies having at least some basic internal risk controls in place, they are really still being blindsided by risk. Just a quick look at the paper, we can see, high stories about large fines or the reputational fallout from unethical business practices such as, Wells Fargo, unintended data breaches or product failure, for example, Boeing, or high-level employee misconduct. I actually read just this week that in the Wall Street Journal, where 31% of companies surveyed in this survey found that actually had a formal ERM process in place, which was up from 9% in 2009. Yet, even with that ERM structure in place, many board members first find out that their companies are in trouble or in crisis when they read it on the front page of the paper. So boards want and expect more results from their ERM investments. These trends result in two basic needs by clients. The first is a more formal and more productive way to incorporate risk on the strategic agenda and in the strategy setting environment in general. And the second is a way to make risk management activities, to the extent they exist, more relevant and connected to the actual needs of the business. The holy grail here is for leadership to have easy access to the critical information they need to build confidence in making decisive, bigger, and faster bets on the future. So sadly, there are no quick fixes or magic formula. Affecting this type of change really requires embedding a new organizational mindset and culture towards risk. Leading firms are going beyond offering simple static advice to supporting clients through what are multidisciplinary and sustained initiatives focused on systematically upgrading the people, processes, and tools that collectively activate risk management at both the strategic and the operational levels. So let's look at what leading firms are doing to help their clients with respect to these three core areas: people, process, and technology. And I'll also use this framework to identify characteristics of leading firms. With respect to the first area, people, leading firms really need to be able to engage around the risk agenda at all levels of the client hierarchy. This is not a given, as risk management consulting tends to focus on functional level leaders, in internal audit, in risk, in legal, or compliance. But since setting the tone at the top is one of the most effective ways to effect a cultural shift, leading firms must increasingly possess the access and stature at the board level to question and challenge their core beliefs. And this can manifest in a couple of ways. I'll mention two examples. The first is that to be effective, firms really need to push the board for a visible commitment to risk, usually through the appointment of a director who appreciates and prioritizes risk on the board agenda. Generally, that's someone from the financial services sector, which is much more mature. The second thing that they may do is suggest the creation, if appropriate, of a separate risk committee in addition to the audit committee, which is already overburdened. So by establishing a risk committee, you basically give risk the proper attention it deserves, and you create some real accountability for risk. Let's move on to the second area, which is around process. So enabling and embedding a new culture really requires new supportive organizational processes and structures. In addition to the stature needed to push these top-down initiatives that I just mentioned, firms need sort of a practical street cred, as I call it, to push bottoms-up initiatives at the functional level. Basically, these involve upskilling capabilities and injecting new talent that evolve the risk function and the culture of risk from a box-ticking compliance activity towards becoming a more proactive and forward-looking business advisor. Just one thing. I have a very few slides, so I've advanced them to the point where I hope you're listening to what I'm saying, but I don't have slides to support what I'm saying. But I will. There are a couple more slides that I will show. Okay, so again, we really need to adapt the processes and the governance structures to change the culture of risk from being this box-ticking compliance activity to being more proactive and a forward-looking business advisor. So leading firms, they recognize while the risk function is still first and foremost responsible for protecting the company, they also help raise the awareness for the need to develop new leadership capabilities, governance structures, and reward systems that create flexibility, opportunity, and willingness of risk to get out of their comfort zone, get out of their risks functional silo, and take on additional responsibilities, build new skills, and adopt new ways of working that are more strategic and connected to the business. This may involve helping clients, for example, develop and implement new talent strategies. For example, some firms are suggesting rotation programs to bring in more energetic and up and coming leadership to help manage the risk function with a broader and more strategic mandate. They are also supporting the creation of training programs to strengthen business acumen and people skills that help risk management motivate and manage stakeholders above, below, and across the organization in support of common goals. These sound basic, but because risk has always been considered kind of back office, it hasn't had this kind of energy devoted to it. Just some more examples. EY is helping its clients explore ways to integrate risk into new product development, not to put the brakes on innovation, but rather to devise ways to identify, overcome, and de-risk potential obstacles that help accelerate and move projects forward. Another example is Crow. Crow is helping clients build organizational capabilities and implement more flexible governance structures for risk to be able to rapidly commission and decommission agile SWAT teams to respond to critical needs as critical issues as needed. So these are some of the examples of things that firms are helping their clients do. But the point here is that firms need to call on additional capabilities outside of what you would typically think of in risk consulting to include human resources, change management, innovation, product development, and others, basically, to affect change. The third and last area, and a very important area, relates to initiatives around technology, tools, and techniques. There are three basic ways that consultants are using technology to help their clients. The first, there's probably more, but I'm going to mention three. The first is in identifying opportunities to digitize, automate, and even outsource core risk activities to really free up capacity to take on more strategic activities. In general, companies have been slow to adopt smart technologies in back office functions like risk or internal audit or compliance, despite their ability to dramatically improve both the efficiency and effectiveness. Leading firms are educating the C-suite on the value proposition for transforming risk management through technology enablement. What's interesting here is that this education is not only on ways that risk can use new technologies to improve their day-to-day routines, but with innovation and digital transformation at the top of the corporate agenda, there is also a critical need to educate and raise awareness of the potential new risks these new technologies introduce. For example, issues around data privacy or access management. And even more importantly, to use their subject matter expertise to identify effective ways to mitigate and overcome these challenges. Coincidentally, this training is not just occurring at the client site, but also within consulting firms themselves. And leading firms are investing heavily to upskill their own internal talent from partners on down. Actually, with that, I've been seeing some interesting things that firms are doing in terms of upskilling their own talent from sort of internal credential programs. But for example, I just received an example of an app from PwC, which they're using to push out short learning segments to their partners and consultants. So, which really works with the very busy lifestyle of the consultant. It's kind of gamifying learning in short segments where you can do this standing in line to get on a plane, for example. I was talking about three basic ways consultants are using technology to help clients. The first was on digitizing and automating the risk function. The second area is really embracing technology to helping clients develop a more comprehensive, forward-looking, yet simple view of the risk landscape. The objective is really to move away from that static and backward-looking red, yellow, green heat map toward a more dynamic monitoring system that aggregates and highlights the most critical risks from across a wide range of both internal and external data sources, providing the company more time to prepare and respond. This is kind of a nirvana solution, but in getting there takes a long time. It really involves a sustained effort of systematically instituting KRIs across the organization that are both relevant in the context of making business decisions and are also tied to their financial impact. These metrics aggregate up to provide the board with a comprehensive and dynamic view of the relative importance or the financial impact of potential risks on the company. And it also affords the opportunities to use scenario modeling to challenge assumptions, drive greater insights, and build confidence in prioritizing investment decisions. Leading firms are using implementation of this technology-driven monitoring system as an opportunity to standardize the risk taxonomy across the firm, eliminate duplication, streamline and automate processes, and ideally create a unified data lake or a one single source of truth that meets the needs of multiple users. The third and last way that I'll mention that consultants are helping clients use technology is in providing or enabling analytic capabilities that allow companies to better use their data to detect anomalies and evaluate and optimize their internal controls. Leading firms, for example, are helping clients utilize big data analytics to uncover patterns and trends in their risk data, whether it's customer transactions or employee activity, that not only help detect risk, but also help shape the threshold and escalation policies that limit losses. But importantly here is that they don't just use the data to generate insights. They go further to operationalize these insights to solve real business problems that save money, limit losses, or generate revenue. So I am going to change the slide here. I haven't been changing slides because I don't have many, as I mentioned. But here is basically the results of the 2019 Strategic Risk Management Vanguard. Just some observations. As I mentioned, with boards increasingly pushing the risk agenda, risk consulting firms must be able to operate at all levels of the client hierarchy with capabilities that are both a mile wide and a mile deep. And our Vanguard basically evaluates depth and breadth. And so all of this tends to favor the large multi-service firms. On one hand, firms need to earn their place as a trusted advisor at the board level, using their broad, big picture perspective and business acumen to translate the impact of emerging risks on the client's specific strategy, investments, and business model. So that's kind of the top side. And on the other hand, they must be able to dive deep in applying a broad range of very niche subject matter and technical expertise by country, by industry, to understand, implement, and operationalize the tactical ramifications of change, across finance, legal, audit, compliance, IT, and frontline operations. So the leading firms here basically demonstrate both top-down and bottom-up execution in aligning broad strategic imperatives with that frontline technical process, those frontline technical processes. In addition to depth and breadth, leading firms possess an organizing mechanism or culture of cross-firm collaboration to seamlessly bring together the right teams and resources from across their organization to address the full range of client needs in a way that hides their internal complexity from the client. And what I found is that clients also seem willing to give up best-in-class piecemeal offerings for firms that can deliver a full range of integrated solutions with team continuity across all elements, all of which, as we can see from the Vanguard results, tends to reward large multi-service firms. There is an exception, or if there is an exception, it really is in data and analytics. Data analytics is one area where clients do seek out best-of-breed partners, but these partners still must be able to operationalize the results. That is, to use analytics to solve real business problems on a sustainable basis. So in conclusion, I have three takeaways. Maybe you've taken away more, but what I'd like to say is that Clients are maturing away from setting up frameworks and infrastructure needed to assess and manage risks across the organization, um, toward finding ways to make risk management more relevant and connected to the business and providing business leaders with the critical information they need to balance trade-offs between risk and opportunity. The second idea here that I'd like to convey is that this trend comes with the need for consultants to operate at all levels of the client hierarchy, from understanding the impact of emerging trends on strategy to executing their technical ramifications at the operational level across the three lines of defense. And finally, that risk management goes beyond technical subject matter expertise around rules and regulation to encompass a multidisciplinary approach that includes HR, IT, change management, innovation, digital, data analytics, and others, with leading firms able to seamlessly draw on their organization's resources to meet client-specific needs. So with that, I have concluded. I'll be happy to take any questions, and if you would like more information or have questions or would like to purchase the report, please contact the email address on the screen. So let me just stop here and see if there are any questions. Okay. There seems to be a question about, what makes other firms, I've talked about the leaders, but what about the other firms? Is there anything special about them? First of all, at ALM, any firm that makes it onto the Vanguard analysis is considered to be a very serious and accomplished participant in the consulting domain. I would say, let me just go back to that slide. So we have the leaders on the top right, the challengers in the middle, and the contenders at the bottom. So they're all very important firms in strategic risk management. But what I found that is overall in the challenger area, these are the firms in the middle, they're still terrific firms, but they were just less effective in being able to seamlessly bring together firm resources to address the full range of client needs, either because they lacked capabilities or they lacked that organizing mechanism or culture to promote that cross-firm collaboration. And with the contenders, these firms tend to be they tend to exhibit deep technical expertise in a specific industry, such as insurance or financial services, or a specific risk domain like internal audit or GRC technologies. But they're either unable to scale these niche assets or to expand their capabilities to meet the broader needs of the C-suite. Let's see if there are any other questions. I think that's it. So with that, I thank you again, and if you have any other questions or would like to reach or purchase the report, please contact us at almintelligence@alm.com. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.